She forced the pregnant. Made to sing at her wedding, the millionaire's reaction stunned all. Maria's hands trembled as she clutched the microphone, her swollen belly pressing against the elaborate stage setup. 8 months pregnant. Exhausted from a 16-hour shift preparing for this extravagant wedding, she could barely stand. The bride, Vivian Thornwood, stood in her $1,000 gown with arms crossed, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Sing," she commanded, her voice dripping with entitlement. "You said you could sing, didn't you? Well, now's your chance to earn those pathetic tips." Maria's eyes filled with tears, not from the humiliation, but from the sharp pain radiating through her back. She opened her mouth to protest, to explain she needed rest, that the baby was pressing down uncomfortably, but Vivian's icy glare silenced her. In that moment, Maria realized she was nothing, more than entertainment. To these people, a pregnant woman, reduced to a circus, act at a millionaire's wedding. What happened next would change everything. Maria Santos had been working for the Thornwood estate for 3 years. She'd scrubbed their marble floors, polished their crystal chandeliers, and served countless dinner parties without complaint. The pay was decent, enough to send money back to her mother in Honduras and save a little for her baby's arrival. She never asked for much, just respect and the dignity of honest work. Vivian Thornwood, the youngest daughter of real estate mogul Richard Thornwood, had always treated the staff like invisible fixtures. But in the weeks leading up to her wedding to tech entrepreneur Blake Morrison, her cruelty had reached new heights. She'd fired 2 maids for minor infractions, reduced another to tears over improperly folded napkins, and seemed to delight in exercising her power over people who couldn't fight back. When Vivian overheard Maria humming while arranging flowers one afternoon, she'd stopped in her tracks. "You have a voice," she'd said, almost surprised that the help possessed any talent. "Can you actually sing?" Maria had nodded modestly. Back home, she'd sung in her church choir, her voice a source of joy and comfort. But here, in this mansion of cold marble and colder hearts, she kept that part of herself hidden. "Perfect," Vivian had said with a calculating gleam in her eye. "You'll sing at my wedding reception. Something romantic. I want to surprise Blake with live entertainment, and hiring a professional would cost a fortune. You'll do it for free, of course. Consider it part of your duties." Maria's heart had sunk, but she'd agreed. What choice did she have? She needed this job, especially now with the baby coming and the father long gone. She'd practice in her tiny room at night, her hand resting on her belly as she sang lullabies to her unborn child. The wedding day arrived like a glittering storm. 500 guests filled the Thornwood estate's sprawling gardens, dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. Crystal champagne flutes clinked, string quartets played, and white roses bloomed in impossible abundance. Maria had worked since dawn, helping the caterers, ensuring every detail met Vivian's exacting standards, all while her feet swelled and her back ached with the weight of her pregnancy. By evening, she was running on fumes. She'd asked the head housekeeper if she could rest for just 20 minutes before her performance. But Vivian had other ideas. "There you are." Vivian's shrill voice cut through the reception din. She grabbed Maria's arm, her manicured nails digging into flesh. "You look terrible. Fix yourself up. You're performing now. I don't care if you're tired. You work for me, remember?" Maria wanted to explain that the baby was sitting low, that she'd been having Braxton Hicks contractions all day, that she desperately needed to sit down. But the words died in her throat as she saw the crowd of wealthy strangers watching with curious, entitled eyes. The band leader, a kind-faced man in his 60s, noticed Maria's distress as she approached the stage. "Ma'am, are you all right? You look pale. Maybe we should—" "She's fine," Vivian interrupted, practically shoving Maria toward the microphone. "She's going to sing At Last for my new husband. Isn't that sweet? Local talent." She said it like Maria was a performing animal, not a human being carrying life inside her. Blake Morrison stood beside his new bride, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. Like everyone else, he simply watched. Maria gripped the microphone stand, her vision blurring. The opening notes began, and she drew a deep breath, summoning strength from somewhere deep within. When she sang, her voice was pure and powerful, filled with an emotion that transcended the humiliation of the moment. She sang for her baby, for her mother back home, for every person who'd ever been treated as less than human. The crowd fell silent, genuinely moved despite themselves. Even Vivian looked surprised that such beauty could come from someone she'd deemed so insignificant. But halfway through the second verse, Maria's knees buckled. The pain was suddenly intense, radiating through her abdomen. She gasped mid-note, the microphone slipping from her hands. "Keep singing!" Vivian hissed from the side of the stage, more concerned about her entertainment than Maria's well-being. Maria tried, but another wave of pain crashed over her. She stumbled, reaching for the microphone stand, but missed. She was falling, the stage tilting beneath her, the horrified faces of 500 guests, blurring into one mass of indifferent wealth. Then strong arms caught her. Thomas Whitmore, one of the wedding guests, had been standing near the stage when he saw Maria's distress. Unlike most of the crowd, he'd actually been paying attention, not to the spectacle of a maid performing, but to the clear signs that something was wrong. The 62-year-old venture capitalist had built his fortune on reading situations others missed, on seeing value where others saw nothing. He'd also lost his own daughter to complications during pregnancy 5 years ago, a wound that never fully healed. "Call 911!" he shouted, carefully lowering Maria to the ground. "This woman needs medical attention immediately." Vivian rushed over, but not to help Maria. "What are you doing? You're ruining my reception." "She probably just needs water." Thomas looked up at her with such fierce disgust that Vivian actually stepped back. "This woman is having a medical emergency and you're worried about your party? What kind of person are you?" He turned to Blake. "Your wife just forced a pregnant woman in clear distress to perform for your entertainment. Is this really who you want to be?" The question hung in the air like an indictment. Blake's face flushed with shame. Around them, guests who'd been content to watch the show were suddenly uncomfortable, confronted with their own complicity in Maria's exploitation. The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes. As paramedics loaded Maria onto a stretcher, Thomas insisted on riding along. "I'm not leaving her alone," he said firmly. At the hospital, he paced the waiting room while doctors examined Maria. She was in early labor, likely brought on by stress and exhaustion. The baby was coming 5 weeks early, but the prognosis was cautiously optimistic. When Thomas was finally allowed to see her, Maria was in a hospital bed hooked up to monitors, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I ruined the wedding. I'll lose my job. I don't know how I'll—" "Stop," Thomas said gently, pulling up a chair. "You have nothing to apologize for. What happened to you was unconscionable. No one should ever be treated that way." Over the next few hours, as Maria's labor progressed, she and Thomas talked. She told him about her mother, about leaving Honduras seeking a better life, about the baby's father who'd disappeared when she told him she was pregnant, about her dreams of giving her child opportunities she never had. Thomas listened with the full presence of someone who understood loss and struggle, despite his wealth. When Maria's daughter was born at 2:47 a.m., a tiny, perfect 6-pound miracle named Sophia, Thomas was the first person besides the medical staff to see her. "She's beautiful," he said, his eyes wet with tears. "Just beautiful." What happened next surprised everyone at Thornwood Memorial Hospital. Thomas Whitmore didn't just visit once and disappear. He became a permanent fixture in Maria and Sophia's lives. He paid all the medical bills, which Maria's minimal insurance barely covered. He set up a trust fund for Sophia's education. He helped Maria find a new job not as a maid, but as an administrative assistant at one of his companies with full benefits, paid maternity leave and respect. But more than the money, he gave Maria something precious, his time and genuine care. He became Sophia's honorary grandfather, showing up for pediatrician appointments, first smiles and sleepless nights. He helped Maria study for her GED, then supported her through community college courses in business administration. "Why are you doing all this?" Maria asked him one afternoon, about 6 months after Sophia's birth. They were in the small but comfortable apartment Thomas had helped her secure, watching Sophia attempt to roll over on a playmat. Thomas was quiet for a moment. "I told you I lost my daughter," he finally said. "Emily died in childbirth. I was traveling for business, didn't make it back in time. I'd built an empire but missed what mattered most. When I saw you on that stage, pregnant and being treated like you didn't matter, I saw a chance to do something that actually meant something, to be there when it counted." He paused, watching Sophia grasp at a colorful toy. You know what I realized that night? I'd been attending parties like the Thornwoods for decades, surrounded by wealth and comfort, while people like you worked invisibly in the background, making it all possible. I'd never questioned it. Your courage, continuing to sing despite your pain, trying to provide for your baby despite impossible circumstances. It woke something up in me. Maria reached over and squeezed his hand. You saved us. No, Thomas said softly. You saved yourself. You're the strongest person I know. I just opened a few doors. You're the one walking through them. As for Vivian and Blake, their marriage lasted less than a year. The video of Maria's collapse had gone viral, posted by a guest who'd captured the whole incident. The internet's judgment was swift and merciless. Vivian's cruelty, Blake's complicity, the wealthy crowd's indifference. It all became a symbol of everything wrong with inequality and entitlement in America. Thomas leveraged the attention to launch a foundation supporting pregnant women in vulnerable situations, offering health care, job training, and childcare assistance. Maria became the foundation's spokesperson, sharing her story at fundraisers and conferences. Transformed from invisible maid to powerful advocate, 3 years later, Maria stood on another stage, this time by choice. She was graduating with her associate degree in business administration, Sophia in the audience beside Thomas, clapping her tiny hands. Maria's mother had flown in from Honduras. In her graduation speech, Maria talked about dignity, about how every person deserves to be seen and valued, about how one man's decision to care had changed everything. She didn't mention Vivian by name, but everyone knew the story. Kindness is a choice, Maria said, her voice steady and strong. Every single day, we choose whether to see each other's humanity or to look away. Mr. Whitmore chose to see me when I was invisible to everyone else. But here's what I want you to know. I was always worth seeing. Every maid, every janitor, every worker you pass without noticing, they're worth seeing too. They have dreams, stories, voices that deserve to be heard, not because someone wealthy decides to help them, but because they're human beings with inherent worth. The applause was thunderous. That night, at a small celebration dinner, Sophia sat in Thomas's lap, calling him Grandpa Tommy and smearing frosting on his expensive suit jacket. He didn't care one bit. You know what the best investment I ever made was? He asked Maria, watching Sophia giggle. What's that? Paying attention, he said simply. Just paying attention to what mattered. Maria smiled, thinking back to that terrible night on the Thornwood estate. She'd been forced to sing, treated as entertainment, pushed beyond her limits. But from that darkness had come light, a daughter she loved more than life, an education that opened doors, a friendship that redefined family, and a voice that was finally, truly heard. She'd been forced to sing, but now she sang by choice, a song of resilience, dignity, and the transformative power of one person deciding that another person's suffering matters. And that made all the difference.